we have to turn attention to our hotline documentary, My Status. That's what it's titled. Adolescent and young adults represent a growing share of the number of people living with HIV and AIDS in Ghana. For answers to why this has become a trend, you have to watch our latest hotline documentary, My Status by Faustina Safu. Yesterday, we showed you the first part. There's a second part showing later this evening at 6:30. Here are excerpts. When we come back, we've got the AIDS Commission to have a conversation with. Stay with us.
Aisha's fate was decided at birth. Both parents had HIV, so Aisha was born HIV positive. At age 3, Aisha's father died. Her mother relocated to a different town, leaving her with her aunt in Kumasi.
Hospitals almost 3 years. And so I saw for catch me Anthony say, say HIV ne have. Now, so for now, because I my papers be or try hospital in papers near the call Agogo. I told so Agogo hospital. Some go check I am Panama HIV.
At the time, Aisha was too young to comprehend what she was going through, so her aunt kept it a secret until she became a teenager.
When it comes to children, you can't disclose to a child that is 3 years or 10 years. It's whereby the child is from 12 years up to 20 years. That's where you can disclose the person's HIV status to her.
Aisha is now living with her uncle here in Accra. She dropped out of school due to stigma.
Because of what says I am, so much as the government did Capra and Yana woman coming be family.
In Ghana, the first case of HIV was recorded in 1986. Since then, the number of infected persons have risen steadily. In 2013, the United Nations introduced what it calls the 1990 Agenda in an attempt to get the epidemic under control. The idea is that by 2020, 90% of people who are HIV infected will be diagnosed. 90 of those diagnosed will be on antiretroviral treatment, and 90 of those on treatment will be virally suppressed, reducing the spread of the infection. Ghana is struggling to achieve the target. Director of the Ghana AIDS Commission, Stephen Treme Etwahene, explains why.
So far, for the first 90, that which relates to know your status, we have achieved 66.5%. So all persons, 66.5% of all persons living with HIV in Ghana knows their status. For the second 90, we have achieved 45.5%, which means 45.5% of people who know their status are on treatment. And why is that? A number of reasons can explain this situation. Number one is the fact that many people are in denial, as I said earlier on. Many also would want a permanent solution. Instead of taking medicines every day or being on treatment for life, they want a cure.
To prevent future rise in infection, Mr. Treme says every Ghanaian has a role to play.
You can prevent HIV only when you know your status. If you don't know that you have HIV and you say, oh, you are preventing it, when in fact you have the virus already, it will be a useless effort. And so it is important for everybody to test first.
And we have to continue the education as well. And what a better way than to get to the stables of the Ghana AIDS Commission. We have Dr. Fred Nanapuku. He's in charge of technical services as a director. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Nanapuku.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and if you look at the excerpts from the documentary, it looks like what the statistics have been, especially coming from the AIDS Commission, seem to support the trend of conversation in the documentary.
Yes. The statistics are pointing to the fact that the situation is not all that rosy for us. We need to work harder and ensure that people test to know their status. Those who know their status are put on medication, and then be consistent in taking their medication so that we have viral suppression, and hopefully by 2020, which is just a year and a half from now almost, we will be able to achieve the 90-90-90. It's a heinous task, but with more effort, I think we can be able to do that.
We've seen that since 2000, indeed since the late 80s up to now, we've had a number of action programs from the AIDS Commission, but especially since the Stop AIDS Love Life campaign towards the end of the 2000 period and subsequently the beginning of that millennium, we've seen a certain actionable point in various campaign forms. At a point in time, it was even for voluntary counseling and testing, and now we've seen that the statistics are indicating that averagely many young people seem to be part of the age bracket that is getting more infected. What could be some of the attributable reasons?
Right, thank you very much. You know, transmission of HIV, mostly about 80% in Ghana as it stands, is through sex. So we can say that probably the young people are taking more risky behaviors. Risky behaviors in the fact that they're having sex without protecting themselves. I believe that the country, we are in a form of transition where we are looking at Western world culture, where there's some amount of liberalism. At the same time, the education that goes with that is not enough. The youth are adapting these cultures, which in a way you can't say it's good or bad, but the added education is what is lacking. I'll give you an example. Just a few weeks back, I know a couple who sent their kids to Canada to school in the university, and at the orientation, these are young people, about 17, 16, 18-year-old. They were told that, look, you can have sex, but make sure that you have safe sex. Right. In our environment, we don't do that kind of education. So people are learning by themselves without the additional precautions that are being given. In Ghana, just last week, we engaged one of the beauty pageants to go do education in schools. He went to the Ministry of Education, and they are saying that they just want to know exactly what they're going to tell the students. Are they going to talk about condoms? We should write a letter to them explaining all the issues. And I said, look, it will depend on what the kids really want to know. The questions, some of the issues will depend on the questions.
For example, in the home, through families and households, and also through the educational curriculum or the structure, and through the public schools or even the schools, the content of behavioral change communication should be that we should spell it outright. If you're going to have sex, it means that you have to make sure you protect yourself, and then you practice safe sex or you abstain. You mean we should bulk the information?
We should bulk the information. You see, as currently, as I said, it's like we are in a transition state. People don't know which is the right way to go and which is not. They want to give the information, they give it halfway, right? And then,
well, you're saying we should go all out.
We should go all out and package.
Is that not going to clash with our socio-cultural norms and beliefs?
That is where I'm talking about the transition and a little bit of confusion that exists. Socio-cultural belief, abstinence is key. We all believe that. Religious aspirations, abstinence is key. We all believe that. But at the same time, the cultural milieu in which we are now and the influx of other third world and other things make the young people vulnerable, right? So if we stick to our guns, conservative, and say that, hey, don't have sex,
it's going to portend for the young population. Right. And that is where we're seeing the trend, you see.
That's where you're seeing the trend. Look.
So the AIDS Commission, what do you do about it then? Because it means that you have to be more collaborative with the agencies that tend to deal with the data.
I already talked about the collaboration with Ghana Education Service. And
but you face bottlenecks.
Yes, there are. And we engage the young people themselves to be champions in that regard, right? So it is an issue that altogether we have to solve. It is not just the AIDS Commission. The Ghana Education Service is part, the Family Health Division of the Ministry of Health, even workplaces, parents, churches. In the last 3 years, we have ensured that in our World AIDS Day celebrations, we move into churches and mosques. We do Muslim services to send the messages across.
What has been the reception there?
It's been good. It's been good in most of the religious institutions, because when they tend to understand and appreciate it, then they also know where we stand and where we come in. I will give you an example. In 2009, contribution of new infections from casual heterosexual relationships, right, was about 58.9%. In 2014, it increased to 72%, casual heterosexual in the general population. In the female sex worker group, in 2009, from our modeling, it was about, it was more than 20%.
And
it was 31%, and now has decreased to about 18.5%.
Because of awareness?
So even in the, what our hitherto understanding that is in the sex group or the sex workers.
They are active.
It has come down in their group because of the consistent programming that we have for them. And now in our general population, in the youth, rather, it's increasing. We haven't done that for 2018, but it's most likely to be.
So, back when we had HIV becoming a worldwide phenomenon, and this would have emanated from the United States of America, we're told that it was just what they call now the LGBT community at the time. It was said even supposed to be more like a homosexual disease, so to speak, because it was prevalent along or in that community as well as drug users.
Yes.
But then the pictures that were shown of people at the time and of the world and in Africa were people who were lean up to the point of 2000, 2005.
Yes.
Now we have a population, because of access to antiretroviral drugs,
yes,
logically would have a population sample not being lean if they are affected.
Yes.
How do young people then tend to relate to that? Because they've not seen the pictures of lean people.
Right.
Now, and they don't associate it with that.
Right.
Now, the older population, and you take a story of this one, a 40-year-old man, we're told that she believes may have infected her, and that person could relate. But then, that person also may have had the image that it's only somebody who is lean could have HIV.
Right.
Okay. So how do we tend to juxtapose that? Try to give the cues, communication cues and messages to the young population so that they are always aware about what is going on.
Yes, I think you have really hit the nail right on the head on this issue. You see, the younger population now, because they don't see those pictures. They
don't even know that yeah, at the time.
So sometimes it's like you are a victim of your own successes. We didn't have the medication, so people, by the time you realize the person is gone.
And complementary to that, then you have to do the education for behavior to change.
Yes.
Now, behavior has changed in a certain grouping. The grouping has moved on to a next generation. Now you have a new generation.
Right.
Now the generation is oblivious of the effect.
And understanding that there is medication. So even if you see, so that sense of risk, sense of
has tended to be high.
Yes, the sense of getting infected doesn't really
become emotive
anymore. Because I don't see what they're talking about. It's not so obvious to me. Number two, they are medicine. I mean, I'm told that even if I can take.
And you're
medicine.
speaking like the mind of a young person.
Yes, I can get a medicine.
It's a
husa, right? So combining this, then it's like I can take more risk.
Prior to this conversation, I went onto YouTube.
Yes.
And there were statistics indicating that in South Africa, I may be wrong or right, either weekly or a month, they had infection between 25,000 to 75,000 people.
Yes, in Ghana, last year, 2018, our estimates gives the new infection as about 5,520 or so, between that range. Young people between the ages of 15 to 24, we had new infections amounting to almost, let's say, almost 6,000, right?
Every year?
Every year, last year, yes. So that gives us, if you have 365 days in a, give us about close to 2 in a day. Or let's say about 5 in a week.
And for us, that would be alarming.
5 in a week. Even a single new infection is alarming because it's something that can be prevented. Why do you have to get the infection? And we also know that prevention is better than cure. Why do you have to get the infection, take medication throughout your life, cause economic effects on the government, on everybody? Because if I tell you the amount of money that is spent in bringing in the medicines that you're going to take and the investigations, and these are free. So it's bringing a huge financial burden on the government and our partners. And our partners are withdrawing. So it's now going to be the take of the government to foot and get medicine for all this, whilst that could be used for other things. So why do you get infected? And especially prevention of mother-to-child transmission, where a mother transmits. Some of these new cases we are seeing in the youth is due to mother-to-child transmission.
So they've had it, they didn't know?
From day one, they are not aware of. They grow into it. By the time they are 12, 15, they become conscious of themselves. They ask questions or they go and test themselves, because we have virgins who test positive at the age of 18, at the age of 17.
Yeah.
And this is due to mother-to-child transmission.
Okay, so I have to wrap up with you.
Yes, madam.
But one of the important aspects of behavioral change communication is using ambassadors.
Yes.
And ambassadors could be either maybe people who are well-meaning in the society who could associate,
right,
or people who live the life.
Yes.
Now, for that age group that we seem to be worried about, the young people,
right,
at the end of the day, do you get them also as ambassadors? And
an attempt had been made.
Because
I can give you one.
Because it looks like we haven't seen.
Yes. I'll give you one short story. I mean, like we were having a conference, right, and we needed a youth who is positive to come and talk about the issue. And the person said, we couldn't get. But the person we got said, well, I don't want you to disclose that I am positive, but I can talk on the issue. So there's a challenge there. If we get, we can use some of them. But now most of the people that we are using who are very useful are not, in quotes,
they don't live the life.
Yeah, they don't have the virus.
Because that makes the message also more credible and believable.
I think in South Africa, I met a lady.
Yes, in South Africa it happens.
I met quite a number of them outside, from Holland and South Africa.
Because the
young
infection
people,
rates are high there.
Yes, who are positive and they are out and doing all that. So I'm sure that with time we will get some in this country who will be champions of the prevention message among the youth as well. Yeah.
Well, we'll continue with this conversation on My Status. It's our latest hotline documentary produced by Faustina Safo, and I tell you, great documentary, very emotive, moving, and just make sure that you reach out to us on social media, JoyNews on TV, on Facebook, Twitter, and then also through My Joy Online TV, our channel on YouTube. We have uploads there, and then you can associate with the content of that documentary, My Status. But we'll continue with the conversations, I'm sure, on regular programming as well on the channel. And the Ghana Youth Commission is always coming in handy to help us. And Dr. Fred Nanapoku, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And Dr. Fred Nanapoku is a big man at the Ghana Youth Commission. He is a director, technical services. I told you that.